I'm Lori, 65. 6 months ago, I stood in my dining room, looking at my son Elliot, his wife Ava, and a manila folder on the table that held the truth about our family. The silence was deafening as I revealed that the paternity test showed Elliot was not the biological father of their son, Jake. Ava's face went white, and Elliot stared at the papers in disbelief. It all started on my 65th birthday. I'd spent 3 weeks planning a big family dinner. I chose the perfect menu, decorated the dining room with fresh flowers, and even bought a new purple dress with lace trim, the kind Elliot always said made me look elegant. I set the table for 8, with place cards for Elliot, Ava, their kids Jake, who is 7, and Lily, who is 5. My brother Ben and his wife Carol were also supposed to come. As 6:30 rolled around, no one had arrived. I checked my phone multiple times, thinking I might have mixed up the time. But there it was in my calendar, clear as day. By 7 o'clock, I started calling. Elliot's phone went straight to voicemail, and so did Ava's. Ben didn't answer either, which was strange because he's usually so reliable. I stood in the dining room, looking at the untouched plates. The candles I'd lit an hour ago were almost burned out, and the roast in the oven was getting cold. The chocolate cake I'd spent all morning making sat untouched on the kitchen counter. I tried to tell myself there was traffic or something had come up last minute, but my chest felt tight, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. By 8 o'clock, I knew they weren't coming. I sat down heavily in my chair, staring at the empty seats. The silence in the house was different, not peaceful but hollow. That's when I made the mistake of checking Instagram. At the top of my feed was a picture of Ava, radiant in a red sundress, her arm around Elliot, who was smiling wider than I'd seen in a long time. Behind them was the beautiful blue ocean on a cruise ship. The caption read, "Living our best life in the Caribbean." So grateful for this amazing family trip. I scrolled down and saw more photos. Jake and Lily building sandcastles on a beach, Ben and Carol sipping cocktails at a ship's bar. Everyone was there, having a great time, except me. The timestamp showed the photos were posted just an hour ago while I was sitting here waiting for them. My phone buzzed with a text from Elliot.
Sorry, Mom.
Forgot to mention we'd be out of town this week. Ava booked a surprise trip. Happy birthday, though. Forgot to mention? As if a Caribbean cruise was something you just casually forget to tell your mother about. As if scheduling it on my birthday was pure coincidence. I felt truly invisible, not just overlooked but completely erased from my family. I spent the next few days thinking about all the family gatherings I'd missed over the past few years. At Jake's 5th birthday party, Ava met me at the door with an apologetic smile and said they'd had to move the party to the next day because of a last-minute issue. But when I called Elliot later, he was confused and said the party was that day. Lily's first day of school, I'd asked Ava 3 times what time they were dropping her off so I could be there. She said it was super early, probably too early for me. When I showed up anyway, the teacher told me Lily had been there since the normal time. Last Thanksgiving, Ava called me 2 days before, saying Elliot was really stressed at work and they wanted to keep it a small, immediate family dinner. I spent Thanksgiving alone, eating leftovers and watching old movies. Later, I found out from Ben that they'd had a huge party with lots of friends and neighbors, everyone except me. Then, a week after my abandoned birthday party, the doorbell rang. I was still in my robe, sipping my second cup of coffee and looking at the thank you cards I'd bought for a celebration that never happened. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his mid-40s with graying hair and tired eyes. He looked well, dressed but rumpled, like he'd been traveling. "Can I help you?" I called through the door. "Mrs. Thompson?" His voice was hesitant. "Lori Thompson, Elliot's mother?" My chest tightened. "How do you know my son's name?" "Who's asking?" He was quiet for a moment and then said, "My name is Ryan Lee. I need to talk to you about Ava." I opened the door slowly, keeping the chain latched. Ryan looked even more nervous up close. His hands were shaking slightly, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "This is going to sound crazy, Mrs. Thompson, but I think my son might be living in your son's house." "What are you talking about, Jake?" I asked, and the name hit me like a physical blow. Ryan described Jake's scar on his chin from a bike accident when he was 4, and I knew he couldn't be just making this up. I let him in, and he told me his story. He and Ava had been together for 2 years before she met Elliot. They lived together, talked about marriage, and then she got pregnant. But she kept putting off getting married, saying she wasn't ready. One day, he came home from work and she was gone, along with all her stuff. He searched for her for months, filed a missing person report, and hired a private investigator, but it was like she'd vanished into thin air. 3 months ago, at a conference in Miami, he saw Ava and a little boy who looked exactly like him at that age. He followed them and was sure the boy was his. He hired another investigator who found out that Ava's real name was Amanda Green and that she'd done this before, disappearing from relationships when things got complicated. Ryan showed me a photo of himself as a child, and the resemblance to Jake was undeniable. He also gave me a manila envelope with DNA test results. He'd managed to get a sample of Jake's hair from the barbershop where Ava takes him and had it tested against his own DNA. Before I opened the envelope, Ryan said, "I don't want to take Jake away from the only father he's ever known. But I can't stand by and watch Ava manipulate and lie to the people who love him, including you." I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. The results showed a 99.7% probability of paternity. Jake wasn't Elliot's son. All these years, Elliot had been raising another man's child, all based on a lie. The anger came then, hot and overwhelming. Ava had built her entire marriage on a lie, using an innocent child as a way to secure a life with my son. She'd also been systematically pushing me out of the family, afraid I'd figure out the truth. I knew I had to do something. I called Elliot 3 days after they got back from their cruise and invited them over for dinner. I said I had something important to discuss. Ava was immediately suspicious, but Elliot agreed. On Saturday evening, they arrived. Ava was wearing a white dress that made her look innocent, but I knew better now. Jake bounded in, excited to tell me about his adventures on the cruise, and Lily followed more quietly, holding a teddy bear. During dinner, I kept the conversation light. But I noticed how Ava interrupted Jake when he started to say he missed me on the trip and redirected Lily's attention when she asked why I hadn't come. After the kids finished eating, I suggested they play in the living room while the adults talked. Ava objected, but I was firm. When the kids were settled, I picked up the manila folder and said, "I want to talk about honesty, about family, and about who we really are." I showed them the DNA results and explained everything. Elliot was in shock, and Ava tried to deny it, but her voice was shaking. I also showed them the investigator's report about Ava's real identity and her past relationships. Elliot was heartbroken. He realized that his whole family life had been built on a lie. Ava tried to defend herself, but it was too late. She knew her deception had been exposed. In the end, Ava left without a word. The kids were confused, but we've been trying to explain things to them gently. Elliot and I have grown closer, and Ryan has become a part of our lives in a way. Jake calls Elliot Daddy and Ryan Daddy Ryan, and Lily has accepted that Jake has 2 dads, just like some of her friends. 6 months later, as I'm making Sunday dinner, I hear the front door open. Jake calls out, "Grandma, we brought dessert." He's carrying a bakery box, and behind him is Lily with a bouquet of pink tulips. Elliot follows, looking healthier and happier than he has in years, and Ryan is with them, still a bit shy in family gatherings, but slowly finding his place. "Something smells amazing, Mom," Elliot says, kissing my cheek. "Is that your famous cherry pie?" Jake's eyes light up. "Yes, that's my favorite, just like Daddy's." As we sit down to dinner, the conversation flows naturally. We talk about Jake's soccer games and Lily's dance classes. It's a real family now, not the fake one Ava had created. I'm grateful for this new chapter in my life. Ava may have tried to destroy our family, but instead, she brought us closer together in the end.